Oh, good morning. You know, one of the things that I love most about Toastmasters is this right here. Toastmasters is where leaders are made. It's not just a slogan. It's a principle that we live by. It's a promise. When you belong to Toastmasters, leaders are made. The other thing about this is that most of the people who join Toastmasters are joining because they want to become someone better. They want to be able to present better. They want to be able to speak with more confidence. All of these are attributes of leadership. This is our leadership conference. And in this conference, you've had an opportunity to be in other workshops to help you as the leaders for your club. Some of you have high leadership positions outside of Toastmasters. Many of you have other leadership positions where you're not even sure that you're the leader, but I know that you are. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and leadership partners. Let's see. So I would like you to unmute yourselves, and I'd love for you to raise your hands and tell me what are the top, I have top three, but pick the top one leadership tip or idea that you have learned in this conference that you're going to take back and use in your club.
I like the phrase, jump right in and do it. I have a job that is a little overwhelming for me, but they said, jump right in and do it. So that's what I plan to do, be a little more courageous and not be afraid of making a few more mistakes.
Lovely, excellent. Who's next?
I will. I'm sorry, did I interrupt anyone?
Juanita.
I'll go ahead. One of the things that was interesting for me is that instead of boo-pooing and being sad about the pandemic kiboshing a lot of things for us going on, that one of the speakers, one of the guests talked about using the pandemic to reach out to other people and inviting them to try something new that they might not have tried before. There's a lot of people that are feeling like, well, why not? And so she's capitalizing on that. And that sounded like a great idea to go ahead and bring that forward, as well as the fact that there's a lot of interviewing that's going on, not in person now, but over technology. And so if we can reach out to people and say, hey, we can help you learn how to interview better. I thought that was a great tip.
Excellent. Thank you, Juanita. Who's next?
I got some great ideas. I'm VP of membership and it's new to me. We're a new club and new-ish club. And I got ideas on welcoming in new members. Lots of really good ideas on recruiting and welcoming them in. And in my last workshop on motivational speaking, I learned how to motivate my club leadership to do these things.
Ah, excellent. Anyone else? All right, well, it sounds like you've all learned some very valuable things today. And I think that in this session, we're going to reaffirm why all of those learning, while all of the learning that you've had so far is so very important. So one of the things that I know about each one of you and I basically have only met a few of you before, but I still know this about you, and that some of you have worked really hard in Toastmasters and out of Toastmasters to make sure that you're not noticed for any leadership potential. While others of you have worked very hard, just as hard, to be noticed as a leader. Yet, in spite of your wanting to be recognized or not wanting to be recognized, you got noticed. And whether you wanted to be or not, you also got elected to serve as an officer of your club. Does that ring true for all of you? I see the heads nodding. Yes. So whether you stepped up reluctantly or filled with optimism and passion, it's safe to say that leading in the day-to-day execution of it is not what you expected. Leadership is a word that comes loaded with meaning. And today, we're going to talk about leadership, possibility, and you. Every one of us in this room or on this chat is a leader in some area of your work and life, whether it's leading your children, whether it's leading in your neighborhood, whether it's leading in your club or your work. And the possibility for being leaders, leading leaders is a whole new concept. Because normally we think of it as, well, if I'm the leader, they have to follow me. Now, not everyone comes from this. Some of us come from collaborative leadership, which is rare in the workplace. More, you'll find it on a leadership team, on a board when you're volunteering on the board. You'll even find it more often in a Toastmasters club than pretty much anywhere else. Collaborative leadership is definitely a more egalitarian, more accepting, more diverse kind of leadership. Because if we're making choices and decisions and taking action together, then we have a bond that is different than when you simply follow the leader. Yes? So the possibilities that we can create are endless. When we work together every day, we think in new ways, we imagine innovations and solutions that have never existed before and that have never been tried in our clubs. But then there's also the treasure trove of learning that comes from having members in your club who've been around for a long time. But one of the problems we see in clubs is that often, rather than being able to tap into a treasure trove of history, rather than being able to collaborate with a willing team of partners, we often find ourselves leading by the seats of our pants. We're learning on the fly, or perhaps some of us have experienced holding on for dear life and hoping that our club doesn't crumble around us. Or we've stepped up when a club has already been in deep trouble for a long time, and we have to figure out, how are we going to turn this around? To add to all of that, 2 or 3 years ago with the launch of Pathways, those of us who'd been around for a long time were forced to make some very big changes. And those changes presented us with brand new challenges and demands that we never expected to have in Toastmasters. Interestingly enough, our newer members who only know the Pathways path, they're having a much easier time adjusting than some of those of us who had to start over, if you will, after doing it the same way for many, many years. And all of that has created challenges that we as leaders need to rise to in our clubs. Now, it's always much easier when we don't have to reinvent the wheel or invent a new kind of wheel. But in order to find workable solutions to our new problems, we need to be open to new possibilities, new solutions, and new ways of leading. Being at the Leadership Institute is just one small step. It's a big step, but it's a small step, and it's just the beginning.
Susan,
Yes,
excuse me, I need to ask this question
sure.
of Allison. Allison, I accidentally made you the host. Could you return me back to the host? And I can make you a co-host if you like. But I did that accidentally at the beginning. I hope she can hear me. Anyway, thank
Yes,
you.
absolutely. Just give me a second here, okay?
Okay. Susan, please go back with your.
Not a problem. So I'm talking about leadership and possibilities. I don't know how often you engage in conversations about leadership. In Toastmasters, are blessed to be able to have this framework for learning and these tremendous opportunities to try leadership in new and different ways. What I don't see is that we often think that once someone's been elected to office, they should know how to do it. And we don't give our leaders within our clubs, sometimes even in the district, the same grace we give each other when we give a speech. We know when we give a speech that the speaker is there to not only communicate powerfully and effectively, they're there to learn how to speak more effectively, how to connect with the audience more easily. And we give them grace because we know that they're learning. We don't give our leaders the same grace. We may give them a honeymoon period, but pretty soon, one or two mistakes in, and suddenly we're wishing somebody else was whatever that officer role is. Or we nitpick and we make sure we let them know what they've done wrong. We don't treat them with the same respect that we do when we're evaluating a speech and we're showing our person, our target speaker, this is what you did well. This is what I think you can do better. All in all, great job and thanks for stepping up as a leader in our club. We don't do that as often as we need to. Every single time we meet with our fellow officers, we need to be communicating in the same way that we do when we are evaluating a speech. It doesn't mean you're evaluating the leaders at all times. It just means when you have a suggestion for how to do something new, you have an opportunity to use this framework for communication that we have that is so fabulously effective. Now, the other thing that happens is we wait for the perfect leader. Some of us are sure we're the one who could do it right if they would just vote for us, or if they would just let us do our thing the way we know we can do it. Some of us are waiting for somebody else to step up and do it. And okay, fine. If nobody else is going to do this, then I'll do it. And we do it out of sacrifice instead of a sense of wanting to serve our club. We do it out of a duty because, oh, well, nobody else is willing to do it. Fine, I'll do it. I'll do it again and again. And that kind of stepping into leadership is what sets us up to burn out. Now, we have a lot of fabulous people in Toastmasters who are in leadership roles year after year after year. They're very good at it, but eventually even they burn out and need to turn things around or quit. I've been in my club for 10 years, and two of us are founding members right now. One of us left the club for several years and just came back. I'm so far the only founding member who's been there the whole 10 years. In addition to that, only the two of us who are in our club now are the only two who have been presidents of our club who are still in Toastmasters in our club. Some of our officers have been officers in other clubs, have changed up and brought their leadership to other clubs. But a lot of our clubs lose our leaders forever because we burn them out. We don't support them in a way that helps them to grow and helps them to become better leaders. And we don't support them as if we're their partners. We rather treat them the same way. I mean, if you look at our political situation, regardless of which side of the aisle you vote on or what party you belong to, it really doesn't matter. What you see is once somebody gets elected, boy, they got a target on their back. It doesn't matter whether you agree with them or even disagree with them. They still get a target on their back. They are then put in a situation where everybody's being critical of them. And all they can do is potentially try to do some of the great things they wanted to do, but are now annoying other people, or they can just not rock the boat, just keep it going, keep it afloat the best it can be. Unfortunately, once new leaders have been around for a few weeks and the joy wears off, as I've described, and the nitpicking begins, we're back to waiting for the real leader to come on board. And the leader is trying to figure out what the heck happened. I'm the same person. They voted for me. They used to like me. And now everybody's being critical. I know I was elected to an office for a very large group in the community, and so thankful that I had my Toastmasters training behind me, because I had to lead a 150-person meeting once a month, and then I had a 15-member board that I also had to meet with once a month. My training as a Toastmaster in my club was the only reason I got through that 2-year term with my sanity. The interesting thing about it was an illustration of everything that I've talked about so far. I was asked to run to be the president because no one else wanted to run. But in meetings, I had raised my hand, stood up, and spoken powerfully about things that were important to me. And the current president thought, that's Susan, she could do this job. She had to talk me into running. I decided to do it. I got elected. Only one person voted no. I would later learn that this person would vote no on every single thing we voted on, no matter what. And they would vote all the yays, and then they would say any nays. I would say any nays, and he would stand up and he'd go, nay. Didn't matter what we were voting on. He was that guy. On top of that, after I got elected, I got letters, emails from members who said, I don't think you should be president. You haven't paid your dues. you haven't volunteered for blah, 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 blah. None of those people stepped up to run. And then I had the most unbelievable series of emails for 2 years from people criticizing every single decision I made, every single thing I did. Now, there were also people who supported me, and they were tremendous. Without them, I also wouldn't have gotten through the ordeal. But the funniest thing was when my 2-year term was up, a year prior to that, I decided that we would never have an election for officers for our organization where at least 2 people were not running for every single seat. And I decided that I would not run for reelection. Rather, I would cultivate people from the group so that we could have a real election. I accomplished that. And to this day, it's now been 8 years, every single 2-year term, we've had 2 or more people now running, even for secretary and treasurer, which we know we like to just keep promoting those people because they know how to do the job. And amazingly, the organization itself has become more diverse as more people saw the possibility for taking on leadership roles. I feel that my greatest accomplishment was 1, using all my Toastmaster skills to manage every meeting, and 2, making the organization a place where leaders want to step up and lead. And that's the possibility. In addition to growing our clubs, it's cultivating the leadership within our clubs. So So what I'm asking you to do is stop undermining yourselves as leaders and your club and your members. And the way that we undermine is 1, we lead and we think we have to do it all, so we don't delegate and we don't invite other people to play. 2, we don't support our fellow officers. We're critical of them. 3, we don't make what we do look like we're having a good time when things go wrong. And so if we are haranguing our members, if we are blaming the ones who aren't at the meeting when we're talking to the ones who are at the meeting, because we have low attendance this week and we're like, oh, I hate this. We don't have, we only have 3 people instead of 20 people. What's wrong with our club? Instead of making the meeting, even though there were 3 people, the best meeting possible. Instead of dancing with the partners we have, we make the meeting a problem because the other people didn't show up. That's another problem. It's our duty to serve in such a way that people want to come and people want to lead. And if we don't stop doing the things that undermine our clubs, we will keep going through these cycles. And our clubs will go through cycles. And it doesn't mean that we're bad leaders. But we think when our club is having a cycle of low membership or low participation, that we did something wrong. Concentrate on what can be done to do right that makes people want to be there, whether they're 1 person or 20 people. That's what's going to make the difference. So who will lead our clubs? You all have signed on to be leaders, and you've learned some great things at this conference, and you came in with great skills already. Now the possibility is to have everyone in the club lead together as partners in leadership. Because if I'm the president, I'm doing everything, I'm going to burn out. If I have a team and they're getting most of their work done and they're helping, and they have lives outside of Toastmasters. So sometimes people don't show up. Sometimes people don't get it done. We all have to have a culture of leading together. And most of the time we do. You know, when somebody's absent who was supposed to be the Toastmaster, someone shows up. When the president is not there, the vice president steps up to open the meeting. We do those things. And we want to do them joyfully, as if we're making a difference every time we do those things, not as if we're raining on our own parade. All right, I didn't prepare for this, so I'm going to try and do the best. But if I don't, when we rain on our parade, when we rain on each other's parade, that's the stuff that eats away and rots at the foundations of our club. And we don't want to do that. It's not to say you won't get disappointed and you shouldn't express yourself if you are. And there's a way to express your disappointment without undermining everyone else who showed up. You know, I'm disappointed that Allison had to leave town and you didn't get to hear her speak. But we have an amazing speaker for you today. So please know that when Allison gets back, she'll be back full steam ahead. And today, let's honor the speakers we do have, blah, 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 blah. There's lots of ways you can do that. And what you want to do is invite everyone to participate as a leader. When you have the floor, you're leading. When you don't have the floor, you're leading from behind. You're supporting the leaders. You're feeding them energy. You're feeding them support. Even if you never say a word, they know when you are doing that. And even if you're the only one in the room doing it, it makes a difference. So you can lead your club with a title. You can lead it when you're speaking. You can lead it when you're filling a role. You can lead it when you're sitting in your seat, sending positive energy, support, acknowledgement to the people who are doing what you are not doing in that moment. You can make a difference by creating that atmosphere. So who will lead our club? The answer is all of us can lead our club, all at the same time. And it doesn't mean we have to go in crazy directions. These are two hands panning for gold. And one of the things that I love the most about Toastmasters and this idea that we make leaders, we should always be scanning our membership, panning for gold among our members to find those potential leaders. They are our future, and they're also our helpers. Who do you want to do a project with? Who can you work with on something? I know it's easier to do it yourself, but I also know that it gets lonely. That's where the source of burnout can occur. And I also know that whenever someone I admire has ever said to me, Susan, would you do this with me? Wow. Karen asked me, Phyllis? Oh, Phyllis, I would do anything for Phyllis Harmon. She's the person who got me not only involved in Toastmasters, but she mentored me every step of the way. And we didn't have weekly meetings, but whenever I wasn't sure what direction to go in and what to do next, Phyllis Harmon, I could give her a call, send her an email, send her a text, and she would point me in the right direction. She never told me how to do it. She just pointed me in the right direction, and it made all the difference. Now, when I have a problem with pathways, Allison's my go-to person. And fortunately, I don't have too many problems with it. Just every once in a while, I'll admit, I haven't been back to Pathways too long a time each time between when I go, and I forget what I'm supposed to do. But she's fabulous. I just go, I just did this and I need to do this. She goes, oh, do that. Boom. All of 30 seconds. It doesn't take hours and hours to empower. It just takes the willingness to support people and cultivate them and ask them to do things that they've never done before, but with support. The place where people get burnt out is when they're asked to answer a challenge as a volunteer without support. Now, that leads me to starting with heart. Everything we do, everything we want to do for our members is because we came with a big heart filled with love and appreciation. We want to do better in Toastmasters, and we want our members and our fellow officers to do well. Starting with heart is the secret to it all. Anyone here ever given a really harsh evaluation in your club? You didn't mean to, but it came out that way. Am I the only one? Nobody else? Let's see. Are there any hands up? Any of you? Nobody. I can't see anybody. Okay. Well, if you've ever given a really harsh evaluation, you probably noticed somebody came up to you before the meeting was over, after the meeting, sometimes right in the meeting, and jumped in to bring the heart back to your group. That's the same thing. It's the same dynamic when we give one of our leaders in our club a really harsh piece of feedback and we don't temper it with heart. So let's see. I want to share that when you have a good intention and you volunteer, nobody can be your boss. When you're a volunteer, you can say yes and you can say no. And when we delegate, we need to delegate knowing that the person we're asking to do something has full power, full authority, and full permission to say no. Now, when they do say no, my gut reaction for most of my life until probably the last 20 years was, oh, okay, I'll ask someone else. But I learned a really powerful tool when I became a professional fundraiser in my nonprofit, which is whenever someone says no, I ask them, would you be willing to share with me why you're saying no? And that opens up a whole world where your hearts can meet, your heads can meet, and you have an opportunity to understand why that person doesn't want to play in that time. It could be their life is just so busy they can't take on another but you won't know that if you don't ask. It could be that they don't understand what it is you've asked them to do. But if you don't ask, you'll never know. And what I've learned is once you ask someone why and they give you a reason, find another why question to ask. And by the time you get to the fifth why, you will have gotten to the heart of the matter. And you will have an opportunity to have a very clean conversation where that person has the space to either change their mind or to decline without any guilt, without any recrimination, and with you knowing that under other circumstances, there are things that they might say yes to. But unless you have those deeper conversations when you're asking someone to volunteer for something and they say no, you will stop asking those people. You will stop participating because they said no to you and your feelings got hurt. Or you just decided, well, they always say no, I'm not going to ask. But once you find out with heart why someone said no, that opens up a whole world for yeses to happen, either later that day or down the road. Now, being a leader who leads with heart, who knows they don't have to do everything by themselves, who learns how to ask people and cultivate people to join them and to bring them into leadership, is not comfortable. Even if you've been doing it and doing it and doing it, you will always get to a point where the conversation gets sketchy. And that's what I call a baloney in your shoes moment. So just imagine having baloney in your shoes. It feels yucky. The really scary thing about it is you can get used to having baloney in your shoes and it stops feeling yucky. But that takes a lot of conversations before that happens. So what I'm going to ask you to do as a leader is to don't be afraid to live with the uncomfortableness of baloney in your shoes. Someone said that what they learned was just jump in and be courageous. I'm going to ask you to jump in, be courageous. And when you have that baloney in your shoes moment and it feels so uncomfortable, remember, it's just a feeling. It's warning you of danger or perceived danger. But for the most part, you really are safe in your club. The people in your club really do care about you. They want you to do well, and they want to do well with you. So anytime you have to do something that you're not used to doing, you will have a baloney in your shoes moment. And if you're like me and you're a slow learner, oh, you'll have a lot of those moments. But what I have learned is no matter how squishy and yucky the baloney in my shoes feels, I can rise above it. I can have the poise I learned in front of Toastmasters audiences for the last 10 years, and I can make it work. And if I can make it work, I know that you can make it work. And that's a cause to celebrate. Leadership is not a burden. It's a huge opportunity. And in Toastmasters, where leaders are made, you are among those leaders in the making. No matter what skills you have brought to this, no matter what skills I've learned over the last 10 years, I'm always a leader in the making. I never consider myself fully baked. I know that I will get better and better at doing this. And that's a cause for celebration. It's not a cause for what's next. We really do have a tremendous opportunity to leap into the new challenges, live with the baloney in our shoes, and continue to learn to be the leaders we've been waiting for, the leaders we've been hoping for, because those leaders are us. And I'd like to close with this quote from Helen Keller: "When we do the best that we can, we never know what miracle is wrought in our life or in the life of another. Toastmasters is a place where leaders are made. It's a place where speakers are made. It's a place where we have a framework for learning and continual improvement that I promise you, if you embrace it and learn everything you can while you're in leadership or not in your club, what you learn in Toastmasters will carry into everything that you do and bring this kind of empowering leadership, this desire to lead no matter where you're sitting in the room. That's what will be brought out. Leading with heart, leading with intention, leading with generosity. That's what I bring to you today as the formula for leading leaders, which in every club, that's what we're doing. Thank you. And I'm gonna.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. I'm so inspired.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions or anyone else who would like to make a comment because we have a few minutes before our session ends.
I wish I had my own personal recording. I'm going to have to wait, Susan, until this gets recorded and put out on the D7 website. But it's so wonderful to hear you share all those things. I was writing down as fast as I could.
Thank you.
Like we talked about in my last session, is that I have to go back and reread my own notes, which is might be a bit difficult.
I understand completely.
I took a lot of notes as well. Thank you
good.
very much. A lot of great tips. One of the things that I would like to mention that you just kind of triggered for me, you asked if we had ever given an unkind, perhaps by mistake, an unkind review or evaluation. And it just brings up a point that had happened to me just recently in our club, that there was, someone didn't do it to me, but they gave a speech, and I knew that the purpose of their speech was to prepare a video that was actually going to be posted online with their business. And I knew she was very nervous, and I chose not to give her the negative feedback that I was feeling during the meeting, because I felt like it would have destroyed a lot of good that she had done. Mm-hmm. And so I chose to contact her afterwards and let her know the part that had impacted me negatively and why. And she said, "Thank you very much for bringing that up, because it helps me to know how to tweak before I do posting online." She said, "In fact, when I saw the time go up, that my time was almost up, I missed a little segment that would have taken care of what you said." And she said, "I now realize how important that little portion is." So I think it's really important, just like you said, that you ask someone, would you be willing to share with me why you said no? I think it's really important for us to be willing to step out of our comfort zone and approach a teammate as someone that is perhaps even a great friend, and share with them what your feelings are, but in a positive, encouraging way privately, that sometimes that needs to be done privately. But it was a very valuable piece of information for her to have for moving forward. So I think we need to make sure that we don't, I almost didn't say anything because she's such a great friend. I didn't want to be negative. And so I just think that we need to really realize that some of that feedback that's put on our heart, if we give it with heart, that it serves a purpose.
Exactly, Juanita. Beautifully stated. Thank you so much for sharing that insight and that story.
Carrying on Juanita's question a little bit, Susan, do you think there's any difference in addressing feedback to different generations? You know, it's really cool to beat on the kids, but those younger than 40 who are, you know, stereotypically the snowflake generation, who've always been told that, you know, we're shiny, happy, and, you know, we can do no wrong. Do you, from your experience, is that different, presenting feedback to those in younger cohorts who are approaching Toastmasters?
Well, probably the answer should be yes, but I don't. You know, before most of those, when I used to run my youth mentoring program, those kids are now that generation. So I have been used to giving them straight feedback all these years. My own children, I give straight feedback to. I think, you know, the idea that they got a trophy for participation, we do that in Toastmasters technically, you know, we give our first, second, and third place. But when you're giving feedback, if you just use our evaluation tool, you know, tell them what they did right, tell them what they could do to improve, tell them again what they did right, and offer to support them. See, normally the way we give feedback is hit and run. And hit and run feedback, even if you think you're doing it well, is ridiculous. You know, it's one of the reasons why in your own companies, when they give you your annual evaluation and they say, and here are the things that need improving, and then you leave the room and then nobody talks to you about those things that you need improving on until the next year. That's crazy stuff. You know,
When I
it's
joined,
when you have a relationship with someone, you can give them any feedback if you lead with heart and then you stay in the relationship over time to check in on them, to support them. That's all it takes. It doesn't matter how old they are or how young they are, how old you are, how young you are. You can be straight with people when you lead from heart. They always will know that.
I wanted to say that when I joined Toastmasters, I had to change my technique because I had been for years and years and years, I won't tell how many, a middle school band teacher. Well, when you're a middle school band teacher, you just tell the kid, hey, you're hitting the wrong note. Hey, you're not doing this right. Hey, you're not doing that right. And so when I joined Toastmasters, I found out that talking to fellow adults is a whole lot different than talking to middle schoolers.
I can appreciate that. The kids that I worked with were middle schoolers, and they were the kids that you wouldn't let in your band class. And boy, yes, it can be different, but it doesn't have to be. Imagine what difference we could make with kids if we use that with our kids in the classroom, in our homes, whenever we're with them. I have a special needs grandson who, even though he's 23, he might as well be 13. And I use that form of communication with him because that's what works. What empowers him is what empowers all of us. So it doesn't matter. I consider children to be just the tall adults, and the adults are the tall children, no matter how tall you are. I just say it that way. And I've never been steered wrong. I can talk to my grandkids about anything. I can talk to my children about anything. Have we run over? Are
Well,
we good?
we do have some announcements from our room coordinator that I hope everyone can stay and listen for. So Jennifer, do you want to go ahead and do that at this
Sure.
time?
Just some district announcements. Let me share my screen.
Unfortunately, I wish we didn't have to end the clock. This is such a wonderful presentation, Susan. We could go on all afternoon and listen
Thank
to
you.
you.
It would be a great thing to do this and then have another hour of discussion for sure. Thank you all so very much.
Agree.
So some upcoming events, we've got our In Front of the Camera presentation, December 11th. And then the continuation, the sequel, if you will, of Amp It Up will be January 16th. So mark your calendars for those events. And that's all I had for current events. But yes, Susan, that was a great presentation. Thank you.
Oh,
That was very helpful.
thank you.
And we do have a couple more minutes for questions if anyone wants to stick around for a little bit.
Oh, lovely. Questions or comments?
Would you be willing to do a part 2?
Yes, anytime,
A sequel.
anytime. Yes,
Thank you.
I have one question.
yes.
The question is regarding, as a leader with heart, how do you build other leaders with heart? I
Right.
really love this podcast and I'd love to have it like all
Thank
recorded,
you.
but I know we're not recording those. But how
Yeah,
do we develop heart?
that
in
is such a great question. One is, how do we develop heart? I think you find ways to be kind in every interaction. Even when you're angry, you can be kind. I think that you do some self-reflection on the things that have hurt your feelings over the years, the way people have treated you. If you look at the bosses you've had, the partners you've had, some of them were toxic and some of them were meh, and some of them, man, you would go to the ends of the earth for that person. Whatever they asked you to do, you would do it, because being with them makes you feel more alive. And if you can be the person that makes people around you feel more alive, that's how you bring out the best in others. When they feel alive, they will go to the ends of the earth to succeed, to please, to get it right, to make mistakes again and again and again, because they know that they can come back from a mistake with dignity. And I would say that you just practice. Live with the baloney in your shoes if it's not your normal way, and just practice. And if you say something that came out wrong and you notice it, you can say, "Oh, Lori, I didn't mean to say what just fell out of my mouth. I am so sorry, Lori. Can I say this another way? Can we do a do-over? What I really would like you to know, and what I'd really like to say is," and you can ask for a do-over. 9 times out of 10, even if it's a week later and you realize it didn't go well, if you go back to that person and say, "I'm uncomfortable with the way we left things because I did this and I did that," you can fix it. So yes, you may miss from time to time, but I promise you can always bring your heart at any given moment. It's a choice. It's a choice. Happiness is a choice. I have a reminder on my phone every morning and every evening that says, "I'm happy. I choose happiness." I can guarantee you, I have some pretty crappy days, but I always choose happiness.
You know, Susan, there's one thing that I've noticed, and I haven't probably follow as much as people on Facebook as I used to, so you're probably still saying those things. But one thing that I really enjoyed about your Facebook posts is that daily you would say 3 things that went well. And,
Yep.
you know, that really brought me my attention. It's like, yeah, I could at least think of 3 things that went well. And if not, then tomorrow hopefully will be a better day and I can make those 3 things happen.
Thank you so much, Lori. And I was just going to segue to that because I learned to do that in a Toastmasters meeting. One of our speakers, a member of my club, the end of his speech, he said, "Now, if you want to try something that will reduce stress in your life, for the next 5 days, write down 3 things that went well at the end of each day. Not the greatest success, but 3 things that went well." And after doing it for 5 days, I committed to doing it for a year on Facebook. And after a year, I've been doing it now for 10 years on Facebook. It has
Wow.
changed my life because I'm always scanning my day for what went well. Now, on a really crappy day, one of the things that went well could easily be the toilet flushed every time. So I'm not a Pollyanna about this. Some days you have to really look, but you can do it. And those are the ways you grow your heart and bring your heart out into the world. So thank you so much for that question.
I have one other quick comment that you just made. You talked about when you ask for a do-over and you go to someone, you say, I'm sorry, and that is really important rather than saying, you know, the reason that I did that is because of you. And so the ownership of trying to
Right.
find what we have done and how we can make it better, I think is really key. And it's hard sometimes, but I think it's really key. So
Thank
thanks
you.
for bringing that up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I promise you, when you own it, not always, but most often, if they have any self-awareness, they will own their part in it. And it's not about blame and guilt. It's really about taking responsibility and then making a commitment to what you will do differently moving forward. And that's where an apology gets all of its power.